Well, more on the future direction of Manx Radio and obviously the Public Service Broadcasting Committee that's sitting at the moment into the future of where it's all going to go. Mr. Berry, you weren't actually at there. I thought you might be watching the Manx Radio people giving their evidence, but you had a good reason, I understand now, not to be there.
Yeah, unfortunately I had to go and have an operation on my back, so that was slightly more important to me than being there.
Well, luckily MTTV was there. I know you have seen them and probably seen the Hansard. Your thoughts?
The videos themselves are quite interesting to hear what Mr. North and Mr. Pugh have to say. I wish I could have been in the select committee, but hopefully the select committee will give me the opportunity to give evidence.
You haven't yet been asked then?
I've not been asked just yet, no, so hopefully at some point in the future I will be.
And I mean, obviously your views is really what I want to hear. I mean, let's talk about what Manx Radio said then, the management of Manx Radio, and your input that you've already made about how it should go.
I think it's worth, Paul, just sort of a slight recap on how this all started. It was last year when David North and Mr. Pugh took to their Sunday afternoon programme on the back of a report that was produced by Treasury in July on Manx Radio and funding for Manx Radio. And during their 1 hour programme they were defending the subvention and defending Manx Radio and Manx Radio's role within the community. And talking about sort of government financing it properly. And one of the comments that Mr. Pugh made was one of the options would be to give the Manx Radio to the BBC. Now, of course, I was a little bit surprised at that kind of comment because, you know, Manx Radio is undoubtedly, it was the first legal commercial radio station on the British Isles, 1964, 10 years ahead of anything else, and is a very integral part of island life. So it disturbed me somewhat to think that, we would hand over our national broadcaster to the BBC, which, they may or may not want them. And what would we get in terms of a local service? Would it just be a sort of a relay from Lancaster with an opt-out for news? We don't know.
Presumably it'd be like, I mentioned already, Jersey and Guernsey do have a similar system where they are unique, they are two operations there that are running a local service and they had it their own way until the commercials came along with massive ratings, and now the commercials have actually got a bigger sort of slice of the action down there. Channel 103, I think, is the one that Mr. North was referring to as the biggest sort of reach in the British Isles. That's right. You don't see any way that model would work then?
Well, yes, it would. Obviously, if the BBC were interested in that, but the BBC Jersey is a very long-established model. It's historic. It goes back a long way, and it occurred to me that if there was an opportunity to create, if you like, through our 3 radio stations, a Manx Broadcasting Corporation, then why would we not look at doing that?
But it looks like you just want the money sort of thing. That's what the way.
Well, there's a couple of real misconceptions there, that are worth clearing up. First and foremost, it's been said that I'm trying to take over Manx Radio. Mm-hmm. Let me be very clear, I am not trying to take over Manx Radio. That's not the driver for this. Secondly, I want government money. I don't want government money. I'm not interested. 3FM has never had any government money. We've never had any government subvention or government grants or anything like that. We've been totally self-funded through our shareholders. So that's not an option. Mr. Pugh made the comment that Energy and 3FM are struggling radio stations. I'm not quite sure where he gets that information from. We are not struggling. 3FM have just had our recent radar figures that has given us 40% of the market of all adults. Our target market within the 25 to 35-year-old female bracket, which is our target, we show a 73% reach. We're not struggling as a station either for listeners or even for revenue.
I can't remember these now, but in your item I filmed when you did your public meeting, you're kind of saying that there's not really enough pie here for all of us anyway, so we do need to sort things out. Isn't that where you're coming from, sort of thing?
Well, the whole document that was prepared was a discussion document, right? It's not a proposal, a full proposal per se. What the document did was looked at the current situation and said, look, the Isle of Man is a nation. Manx Radio has a heritage, and it's a broadcasting heritage that we should be very, very proud of. And the way that broadcasting on the island has developed, certainly over the last 10 years, now puts 3 stations in the marketplace. In terms of public service broadcasting, the BBC is a public service broadcaster, and the BBC delivers its public service broadcasting through a whole range of vehicles, from Radio 1 right the way through to Radio 6, through the television, through online. It uses pretty much every available outlet and technology that's available for us today. So what I was trying to say was, look, the world has changed. The Isle of Man is a nation. The way that the funding exists within Manx Radio is highly over-egged. It costs a huge amount of money for the size of our population. So what I'm trying to say is, through the discussion document, is if we pooled our resources, we would be able to have a sort of a Radio 1, 2 and 4 type format that was able to deliver programming across the whole of the island.
Okay, lots more on this. We'll continue on the next section.